This is the Bureau of Lost Culture, and this is Penny Rimbaud.
Move him into the sun. Gently his touch awoke him once at home, whispering of fields half sown. Always it woke him, even in France, until this morning and this snow. If anything might rouse him now, the kind old sun will know. Think how it wakes the seeds, woke once the clays of a cold star. Our limbs so dear achieved, our sides full-nerved, still warm, too hard to stir. Was it for this the clay grew tall? Oh, what made fatuous sunbeams toil to break earth's sleep at all?
Welcome, this is Stephen, and this is the second part of a conversation with the poet, musician, activist and thinker Penny Rimbaud, co-founder with Steve Ignorant of the anarcho-punk band and collective Crass. Now, in the first part of our conversation, we dug deep into some of the experiences that shaped Penny's worldview as childhood, particularly coming across a book about Auschwitz. His education, his time at art school, and the questioning that led him towards pacifism, anarchism, and a lifelong suspicion of authority. And we touched on poetry, spirituality, trauma, the moral consequences of violence, all sorts of themes that have run through his work within and beyond music. Now, Penny was born Jeremy Ratter in 1944, and he co-founded Crass from Dial House, an old rambling farmhouse in rural Essex. Now, Dial House is not simply a place to live, but a long-running experiment in collective life. Sort of commune, sort of refuge, creative hub. It was here, where he still lives, that his music, philosophy, artwork, debate and survival have all been entangled down the years. Crass emerged as a band around 1977, but quickly became something much more complex. They sort of functioned as a collective, rejected rock stardom, record industry staff. They released records on their own label, very DIY, played confrontational shows, and used their platform to challenge war, nationalism, consumerism, sexism, and state violence. Their sound was deliberately abrasive, the lyrics quite dense and very uncompromising. G. Voucher's visual art defined the band's identity as powerfully as the music itself. Stark, often very witty, dark collages that dismantled the imagery of monarchy, patriotism, religion and authority. And Eve Libertine's presence and voice were central to Crass's challenge to punk's often macho culture, bringing feminist politics and experience directly into the heart of the times. With Steve and the rest of the collective, they created a body of work that blurs the line between music, art, propaganda and lived politics, and has been extremely influential. Now, in the second part of this conversation, we hear much more about Dial House and the founding of the Stonehenge Free Festival and the death of Penny's friend Wally Hope. Along with that book on Auschwitz, I think two of the most significant things in Penny's development towards activism. We also hear about Exit and Serious Confusion, the performance groups he formed before Crass, and of course about his work since, including some of his music and his thoughts on art, spirituality and the self. It's a rollercoaster ride, as was the first part of our conversation. We rejoin Penny as he's talking about Dial House.
Dial House was a 1600 at its oldest point, falling down, rambling cottage really, with about an acre of land. So I just took it, been there ever since. So in those days, places like that were almost to a penny. I mean, they were all over the place. No one wanted to live in the country, and everyone told me I was mad to go there.
The fact that you're actually there still these days is extraordinary in itself. Is that anybody stays in the same property is quite extraordinary. But 60 years, isn't it now?
Mm.
You move into Dial House, and you know it's a kind of open house as it's remained.
Mm.
Talk about the Inn of the Sixth Happiness.
That was a movie I saw, and I was very inspired by the idea of an inn where sort of storytelling is the important matter, and people effectively paid for their bed and supper by telling a story. For the first 3 years, I was teaching at the art school, and there was 2 other lecturers at Dial House. One was a potter and the other was a painter. When I was sort of thrown out, jumped out, withdrawn from the art school, from teaching, I didn't know what to do next. And I had that idea, and I sort of said to the guys, look, I want to get rid of all these individual cupboards. I want to get rid of all this sort of like rotors or anything. I don't want any formalities. I want to take the locks off the doors because I don't want to live locked in a cell, sort of thing. And it was a sort of human experiment, basically, because I didn't know what to do. So the best thing to do was to sort of do nothing and actively make it so nothing did. So after they left, I had a weekend where I just said, come and take whatever you want. I sat for a table and a bed and a cooker, I think, and a book. The place was emptied of all the stuff I had, and there was some beautiful antiques, a collection of old ship clocks and all sorts of stuff.
You just gave them anybody who wanted them.
Yeah, and it just all disappeared in a weekend. So I was in an empty house. The guys had moved out.
How did that feel?
Great. I realised I had to get a cat because I was sleeping on the floor because it was semi-derelict. And I got fed up with rats walking over me at night. So I thought, well, the best answer for that's a cat, and it was.
Did you feel connected with these wider experiments that were going on?
Because didn't know about them.
You didn't know about them?
Probably after 3 or 4 years, I started realising other people were sort of doing that sort of thing. Early 70s.
There's a kind of commune movement, was there? Moving out of the cities. But all of them seemed to have abiding principles, and the one thing I was not going to have was abiding principles. And so basically my thought, having taken the locks off the doors and got rid of everything, was just sit and wait, see what happens. I mean, fundamentally, that's what I've done 54 years or whatever it is, just I sit and wait and see what happens. And I respond accordingly, whether it's a junkie walking through the door or whatever comes along. I don't try to direct it in any way, and there's certainly no abiding anything except vegetarianism. In my case, veganism, but I mean has been a rule in the house. Is that a trust thing, that you just trust in things, or you just trust in yourself or something?
Well, I think it's more just an acceptance.
Right.
Trust seems a bit formal. I mean, I don't actually care, if I want to put it that way.
Right.
But in the kindliest of ways. I mean, one of my sort of self-commands is that I don't intrude on other people's conflicts in the house, unless I'm asked, So if something's happening and it's all going horribly wrong or something, I don't use my judgment on it unless I'm asked to, and then I'll consider what's going on. I've actively attempted to not be seen as a sort of leader or guru or elder.
Or is that you've got some power because it was your place that you set it up?
Exactly
that you're the sort of...
Yeah, which is why I suffered severe depression for the first time in my life after we were forced to buy the house. Suddenly I was the owner of something. I wasn't the owner before. I was just in a place, and other people could have and be what they wanted within it.
The others had gone, the clocks had gone, the cat's come. You're sitting waiting. Well, what did happen?
Well, I had to get work to sort of pay for the sort of, minimal lifestyle I was living. So in summer I used to work on the farm. I was a farmhand, and in winter I became a coalman. Delivery. Both of those jobs were ones I knew would make no requirements of me except my physical strength. And I liked that. There was no philosophy. There was no anything. It was just empty space, and I could happily be in empty space, thinking my thoughts.
So what were your thoughts? Well, what was your kind of life of the mind?
It was sort of like a sort of glorious emptiness. A bit like I still feel if I'm out chopping wood or doing the lawn, or there's a beautiful emptiness.
Like
and
a
silence.
spaciousness?
Yeah, a non-existentness.
Just being conscious of things being there is enough.
Well, actually now, being conscious that they're not there is more to the point.
Right, okay.
You know, because they're all constructs. But at that time, still thinking that actually there was some sort of form.
So you've moved from form to emptiness?
Notably after the last 15 years, which, I mean, that's what I've been working on continuously.
I'm going to park that. I'm going to return to that in a second. But you're at Dial House, you're working in winter as a coalman, in summer as a farmhand, and then people start to come.
So I think I was potato picking once, and this young lad came over and said, "Are you Jerry?" which is what I was called then. And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Have you got a place, you know, where people can stay?" And I didn't know him from Adam. And I said, "Well, how do you know about it?" "Oh, someone down the village said." So I said, "Yeah, come and have a look at it." So when I'd finished work, we went down and had a look at it. He said, "Oh, this is lovely. Yeah, I'll come here." I didn't say, "Well, you move in on this condition." I just said, "Okay, so someone wants to be here, that's fine." So he brought his girlfriend along as well, whose name I don't remember. I don't remember his name either. I think they lasted about 6 months or so. And when they left, the girl took all of G's knickers.
What were they asking?
Yes.
What?
All right. The thefts at Dial House have been quite interesting. G lost all her knickers quite early on. And then the most nicked book is the Scum Manifesto. I mean, that must have been nicked 4 or 5 times, which I think that's quite interesting.
Yeah.
And from that, him and his girlfriend, other people started turning up. I mean, I can't tell you from where or why. I was a bloke just standing in the garden once. So I said, you know, went out and said, "What do you want?" He said, "Oh, I'm just hanging around." So, I mean, it was sort of like they'd always been there in a funny sort of way.
There was no structure then, so there's you and G.
For the first 3 or 4 years, G didn't live there. She lived in another old mansion house about 2 or 3 miles away. And then because, you know, I had to sort of have to lug a mower over to her place or an axe or something or other to do the stuff which needed doing, it became silly, so she moved in.
So no structure, no formal kind of rules to this commune. You turn up, you can live there if you like, you can leave when you like, sort yourself out. Did you eat together or did you?
Yeah.
When did Wally Hope, when did that meeting take place?
Oh, yeah. It must have been about 1970s. By then we'd attracted a whole group of sort of young teenagers who had spotted the place from the train, which goes pretty along an embankment above the garden. They'd noticed this strange place with prayer flags and odd things and were fascinated, and they turned up. The rebels of Ongar, 15-year-old, 14-year-old, dope-smoking, looking for something to do sort of people. Very sweet.
By the way, for listeners, Ongar is a small town in Essex.
And then Wally, Philip Russell, his real name, his guardians lived in Ongar. By that time, he must have been in his 25, 26, I suppose. The first time I ever saw him, we were all sitting in the kitchen looking out to the garden. Then there was suddenly this guy shouting, "Wally, Wally, Wally." And he sort of came up to the window and we all looked out and like that. "Well, Wally, 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 watch this sort of thing." And so he went back round behind the outbuilding. And then the next thing we saw, he was walking backwards, sort of drawing something to him. It was in May, I think, around May time. And he was actually pulling a snowstorm. And he pulled it into the garden. And it wasn't a huge snowstorm, but it was snow falling. And it was a warm day in May. And then he just pushed it back again and then came round and sat down and said, "Oh, I'm Wally." And that was it. So that was
Penny, hold on a second. So you're saying he was like a weathermonger?
Yes, he was a weathermonger, yeah. Yeah.
He pulled the snowstorm into the garden and pushed it out again. He turned up one day. He does this weather working, to which you responded, "Come in," or
anyone could come in, so he did.
And you connected.
I probably thought he was a complete nutter, but I mean, I was open to whatever was going on, and I mean, then this idea of, you know, squatting Stonehenge came up. And I was open to that. I mean, that was really my my role, acceptance.
In a way, this is a very significant countercultural moment because the Stonehenge Festival, which begins here at this point with you two, went on for many, many years, didn't it? And became the kind of nexus, the sort of omphalos for so many other things and catalysed the free festival movement. So
it was terribly important, and it was a true free festival, not like Glastonbury, which was sort of actually a sort of increasingly commercial thing where they were making quite social demands which almost inevitably led to it being essentially middle class. And Stonehenge was a truly libertarian, liberty-seeking event.
Stonehenge, it wasn't fenced off at that time.
No.
Right.
It was actually the festival which got it
fenced off, right?
Yeah.
So Wally had the idea, okay, we're going to occupy Stonehenge and create this happening, right?
Yeah.
You saw your role as, okay, I'm going to support you to do that.
Yeah.
And how did you do it?
He wasn't the most practical person in the world. So he was saying, well, what will we need? What do we need down there? Like maybe a stage or maybe food or however it was.
A generator or something.
Yeah, that sort of thing. Oh, and we did all the sort of promo, in other words, sending all sorts of people all over the world to come along. And then he used to go up to London regularly and sort of do handouts and stuff, telling people about this up-and-coming festival. And the first year, not really many people turned up. When I went down there on a bread run, we'd bake up bread and take it down there for people.
And this is at the solstice time, right?
Yeah. There weren't many. There were 50 or 60 people. Didn't even set up a stage. I mean, it was a sort of pretty mucky camp. I think there was a sort of performance area, but I think there was only one band, and I think they were called Zorn or Zork or something like that. I can't remember. I mean, it was just a bunch of people sitting in a field waiting for something to happen.
But it started to grow, did it, in subsequent years? Did it go quite?
Oh,
did it grow quite quickly?
It grew very quickly. Yeah,
Did
the second one was pretty massive, and the second one here was in a mental institution.
Here is a very short sidebar about Wally Hope, because we're going to devote a whole programme to Wally in the future, but just to set the context, Wally was one of the most influential and now rather forgotten figures of Britain's 1970s counterculture. Born Philip Russell in 1942, he became known as Wally Hope during his years on the road, a name that came to symbolise an idealistic belief in freedom, communal living, an ancient spiritual connection. His life and death inseparable formed the story of the Stonehenge Free Festival, and from the British state's growing hostility to alternative ways of living. In 1974, as we've heard, he became a key organiser of the Stonehenge Free Festival with Penny, and what began as a small informal gathering grew rapidly into a large annual event, drawing thousands of people who came to camp, make music, take drugs, debate politics and experiment. The festival drew increasing attention from the authorities, and Wally became a target. He was repeatedly harassed, arrested and charged with minor offences, including possession of cannabis. And in 1975 was arrested and remanded to the psychiatric wing of Long Lartin Prison, and shortly afterwards he died. It did have a massive impact on you, that whole thing, didn't it?
I mean, I was someone who believed, that peace and love is achievable by living in a place like Dial House, growing vegetables and saying welcome. Thought that was enough, but I didn't realise that, there could possibly be any form of opposition to that. And actually, Wally's death, showed me exactly what the rules of the game were. And I'm grateful, in a way, that it opened my eyes to, no, it's not good enough, Pen, to just dig your organic garden and think it's nice and comfortable. It isn't nice and comfortable.
That you've got to take action, that you've got to do something?
Effectively, yeah, you can't ignore and mustn't ignore, pain and suffering. And you're not going to achieve it simply through tending the vegetable patch and thinking nice thoughts. It wasn't that I wasn't politically aware. I was very aware of, that climate was changing, and that was in the early 70s. The whole Wally experience said, no, we've got to be doing more than that. That set me on a new life of sort of cultural terrorism, really.
Let's hear about Exit, the performance group you formed before Crass.
That was one of the first sort of creative results, of us getting out of the vegetable patch and onto the road sort of thing. And it was completely free form. Anyone could do precisely what they wanted. And a lot of them did precisely what they didn't want. And that's why it worked so well. I mean, again, it was run on a sort of totally laissez-faire framework. And the band was, there were actually initially three sort of players. But, I mean, that could expand and did expand to any number. At Brighton, we did a gig with, I think, a 16-piece band. And anyone else who was there and wanted to get on stage and be in the band got up on stage and were being in the band. So it was utterly freeform. Often it was guerrilla. We'd just turn up somewhere, unknown and uninvited, set up and do it, and then go away again. Very often almost not even noticed, sort of. Certainly no interest was shown in these people making a load of noise in the corner. And it was too avant-garde. People turn off at the avant-garde. It's too much to cope with. I mean, we did a very big festival. It was the ISIS 72. It was International Carnival of Experimental Sound. And it's probably the biggest avant-garde festival that's ever been held. John Cage opened it, and then from after that it was people like Charlotte Moorman, the whole New York avant-garde scene, Jeff Hendricks, you name them, and they offered support, said they'd been there and didn't go, John and Yoko being one of those.
You said, like, out of the vegetable patch onto the road, did you start to mix more with other things which were going on in the culture?
Yeah, I mean, ISIS, introduced us to like-minded people. I mean, Cage was going to come out. We had wonderful mushrooms in those days, and he's a mushroom lover, and he was going to come out and share some with us. But he got involved with something else, and it didn't happen, which is a shame. I'd like to have met him.
That would have been good, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
John Cage at Dale House on mushrooms.
Yeah.
Did Exit sort of flow into Crass then?
There was something musically in between, which was called Serious Confusion. It was pre-punk, without lyrics, very much the same sort of tactics of attack. It was very rowdy, sort of avant-garde rock, really.
How did the notion for Crass come about?
I was working on the book about Wally, and the place had become very dark, and one by one everyone left. I mean, it took a year and a half, I think, to write the book. And it just got darker and darker and darker. And people were just pissing off, and I don't really blame them, but I mean, I felt a bit left alone. I think G was the last to go. She went off to New York. And then Steve turned up, very young. He was about 16, I think.
So he moved in, did he, Steve, then?
Yeah, he did move in, but before he moved in, he wanted to start a punk band because he'd seen The Clash in Bristol or something like that. So he'd come back to Dagenham, where he was from, and to see his mates, and none of them, they all told him to piss off and weren't interested. And he knew I'd got a kit, and I said, well, I'll do it. What do you need? And I said, I'll play drums. We were just two pissed off people, and so we started bashing away on the things, and Crass formed. Other people would be calling by, oh, can we join in? And anyone was free to join in. Again, it was very, very informal initially. When we started being taken a little bit seriously, we realised we had to take ourselves a little bit seriously.
Because you started playing gigs, you mean?
Yeah, the gig started creating interest. I mean, we weren't looking for anything in it. It looked for us. And actually it became increasingly a burden over the 7 years we were on the road.
Did it?
Yeah, I mean, from... two people are pissed off having fun. I mean, it's the only time in life I was stoned quite a bit, that first year.
Yeah, because you weren't really a smoker, were you?
No.
You didn't acid.
No, I didn't do any of that. So I did actually smoke a bit of dope in art school days, which I used for landscape painting. It was fantastic. I mean, I'd go out on my little moped, roll a joint, paint a landscape, and I learnt so much from that. And it was when I started to realise I wasn't learning anything anymore.
Right.
I stopped.
Well, I mean, speed was the drug of the punks, wasn't it?
Oh,
really?
yeah. Well, and actually speed was really what the Purple Hearts. And it was one of the first drugs when I was at art school that started being spoken about. There was no one knew about drugs at all.
Right. So the punks were doing speed, but that wasn't really you, was it?
Well, when I got into poppers, just because they were fantastic if you were drumming. I mean, drumming on poppers is quite extraordinary.
Extraordinarily fast, isn't it?
Well, it's just like you're going upwards rather than along sort of thing. I just really enjoyed it. I just crucified myself on it, and I think it was the second Roxy gig we did. I mean, it was just chaotic. I passed out on Oxford Street or Tottenham Court Road station, was either kicked under or rolled under chairs. And when I came round, because someone, the underground wasn't running anymore and they were cleaning up, I was part of what they were cleaning up, and I'd been mugged as well. My coat had gone, all my money had gone, and I didn't know where the fuck I was.
They ask me why I'm made or why I'm bad. They tell me I've got things they never read. They tell me go to church and see the light, 'cause the good look's always right. So what? So what? So what if Jesus died on the cross? So what about a fucker? I don't give a toss. So what if the master walked on the water? Don't see it, try to stop the slaughter. Say I wouldn't have to live for bins if I would go and look confess my sins. Say I shouldn't commit no crime, 'cause Jesus Christ is watching all the time. So what? So what? So what? If he's always...
You were sort of part of the punk scene, right? But not. You had a sort of serious intent, didn't you? Maybe still fueled by this thing that had got to you, with Wally and stuff. I mean,
the intent was basically watch out. We hadn't been watching out, tending the vegetable patch. So don't think you get away with it sort of message. In which case, organise somehow, get ready, wake up, all of those things. And it had no relationship to what was called punk at the time. We weren't a rock and roll band. We weren't part of the music business. We weren't going to become a rock and roll band, and we weren't going to become part of the music business. And all those bands like Clash and Pistols, it was a commercial thing. It doesn't mean that there wasn't some value in bits and pieces of it, but it had absolutely nothing to do with what people now call the punk movement. The punk movement is dominated by anarchistic thought, which I don't regard myself as an anarchist.
Yeah, well, Crass were always called an anarcho-punk band, weren't they?
Part of that was the manner in which the music business and the music media was able to separate us. I resented that. I wanted to go in at the level the Pistols were there and do a takeover, which actually in a way we did, but not on the terms I wanted. I wanted to be on the terms of we'll be up there and we'll hold that voice and we'll have that effect. And I don't think I'm being arrogant in saying that I think that Crass and the people we work with, was one of the most powerful counterculture movements ever, on a par with Dada. And it still hasn't yet been fully acknowledged. It will be, I know it will be in time, because it's slowly more and more people are beginning to understand.
The impact that Crass had over the, 7 years is quite a long time for a band. Here we are, 50 years later.
Yeah, right. Well, precisely.
You made a lot of records and you made them yourself.
Yeah.
Right? That was the super important part of it all, wasn't it? Is that not being part of the music business. Really taking that punk DIY ethos all the way through.
And refusing all of the offers.
Refusing the offers, that was it, because it's all right doing a 7-inch flexi disc DIY, but then with the hope that actually you're going to get signed by a big label.
Yeah,
but that was not your agenda, was it?
No, absolutely not. One occasion we did go along, it was Jimmy Purce's manager, I can't remember what his name was anyway, but he wanted to do a deal, so we thought, let's go along and just see, what these guys are about. And it was just full of bullshit, like he got phone calls whilst we were there. Oh, no, we'll do the deal. We'll get the Has it got a swimming pool? You know, no, go. Really, it was that sort of banal. You know, like trying to set us up. And he was probably speaking to the guy or no one at all.
Receptionist.
Yeah, precisely.
Right. You got other off, did you, along the way?
Yeah, it just made no sense. I mean, it wasn't.
So you're doing these quite abrasive Dadaist performances, right?
Mm.
Not tune-based. You weren't doing Holidays in the Sun. You were doing songs.
Much more on an operatic level where the music reflects or the sounds reflect and magnify the lyrics. You know, actually far closer to modern rap than traditional rock and roll melodies sort of thing.
But then, of course, the other massive part of it was the message in terms of the graphics, the art associated with it. That definitely set Crass apart and still does, doesn't it?
Well, she got to hear about Steve and myself, and we'd done one or two gigs. Other people had joined. She thought, well, gosh, this sounds interesting. So she came back. She left New York, where she'd been for 2, maybe even 3 years. Said, well, you know, I'll do the artwork if you like, and help. She'd sort of help manage things as well for a while, you know, like if we were getting gigs or that sort of stuff. She did most of the artworks and I did quite a lot of the graphics. I mean, within all the chaos of it, 1 or 2 people within the band knew precisely what they were doing, and I was one of them. G was another. Initially I said to Steve, I'm not going to write any of the lyrics, I don't want to be involved on that level. It was going to be left to him, but actually he really stopped writing after the first album. He did a little bit more, and increasingly that burden, if it's a burden, which it was actually at times, of the songwriting was down to me. And
when you said that you had a very clear sense of purpose, what was that?
Very quickly realising that what had started off as a laugh could have very serious consequences. I suppose that's what we set out to do. I mean, I was having to look at my own world in a very different way, because I was opening it up beyond the boundaries that I had initially created that way of life. I mean, having an unlocked door is one thing if there's nothing to worry about, but suddenly having an unlocked door was a potentially dangerous thing to be doing.
Well, especially if you define yourself as a cultural terrorist.
Yeah, and I still do so. Towards the end, we were recognising our revolutionary potential within the band. You know, we'd done things like Stop the City, which were very effective, sometimes quite violent. And we had got a big thing planned. We were going to march to anything attached to the nuclear programme across Britain, starting at Windscale or whatever it's called now. It was going round, you know, in the underground. This was planned, and we were getting massive support. And we could have got thousands, I think, out. I think we did the 3rd Stop the City, and it was really violent towards the kids and dangerous. Young people being exposed to, you know, police violence isn't amusing. And so that changed our mind. We thought, no, we can't expose hundreds and possibly thousands of young kids to what might happen out in the fields. You know, in the city you did have some protection in the sense that, you know, people would only put up with a degree of violence. I mean, one would hope.
It went on to happen, didn't it? Like Battle of the Beanfield and stuff, you know, in '84.
Yeah.
How did that change what you were doing then, or the way that you did it?
Well, it was the beginning of the end, really. I mean, I wrote a pretty long essay challenging pacifist ideologies, considering other alternatives. I mean, we were in contact, but though never aligned, with all sorts of revolutionary groups, from sort of Baader Meinhof to IRA. So, you know, at some point or other they'd contact us. Some point or other we were visited, etc., etc. You know, so if we had created allegiances with them, then I think we would have truly created a potential for a revolution of some form. It would have been a violent one, probably. But we opted, had always opted never to create an alliance, because by doing so, the realms of our responsibility to our followers, and I don't like using that word, but I'm using it, as long as they were within the definitions that we were creating, we could protect them. But if at the moment we had an alliance with someone who might have very different principles at work, then we would be exposing them to danger. And I don't regret the fact that we didn't actually push through to a revolutionary situation, because I've come to learn since then that, the revolution is within, and it will be won from within.
So for you, Crass had run its course then, you think, in terms of what you could...
We couldn't say any more.
We couldn't do any more, yeah.
No, I mean, certainly not as a band. And I reassessed. I mean, between every album, for example, we reassessed our position, what we've relearnt through the last piece. We're all the time trying to push borders, whatever they are. Well, the first thing I did, I think, after the band collapsed was, go to Ladakh. And that was because my mother was dying or something.
You went to Ladakh, the sort of Buddhist state in India. Yeah. What was that like?
Amazing. I mean, it only actually just been opened up. It was a bit like Bhutan, where you couldn't actually go there. And they'd opened it up because they were worried about the Chinese coming over and taking it.
So did you go and stay with the Tibetan Buddhists up there?
I stayed in wherever I could stay. I mean, actually in Leh, but then I just wandered. It was difficult to wander because people always wanted to pick me up, and I just wanted to be walking. So it's a combination. And then I'd just turn up in a village and see if anyone had got floor space, which they always found one. It was very uncomfortable, very cold.
Yeah, because on the plateau, isn't it? Right up high.
Yeah, it's very high. I think it's just below 10,000. I tried to get up to beyond that, and I just couldn't manage. It was a little monastery up what looks like a hill. And I was already probably at about 9,000. And I'd walked across the desert to get to this place. It was halfway along there. I mean, it was slowly going across, basically.
Arctic desert, isn't it? Yeah.
And there was a little hut. And inside it, all the walls were lined with cherry cake. And don't know how long they'd been there. And so I bought one and headed on. And I mean, weird. I mean, it wasn't any sort of habitation. It was just a hut with cherry cake.
It sounds like a dream, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Dream, isn't it? So your mum was dying, and then Crass has ended. So there's a lot of stuff going on. So this was a break, was it? You're going to go to Ladakh.
I was going to get in line with the monks, who I pretty quickly began to rather dislike, because of their elitism. And it seemed to me they were sort of rather getting it right for themselves and not really attending to the job.
I dreamed a kind Jesus fouled the big gun gears and caused a permanent stoppage in all bolts, and buckled with a smile Mausers and Colts, and rusted every bayonet with his tears. And there were no more bombs of ours or theirs, not even an old flintlock, nor even a pike-hole. But God was vexed and gave all power to Michael. And when I awoke, he'd seen to our repairs.
Really, when you come back, you'd already been writing anyway, as in writing apart from music, hadn't you? And diatribes and critiques, fiction. You're still at Dial House, and which of course now has become this open house for artists and other people coming and going, right? And then you really concentrated on writing, didn't you, for the next 10 years or so?
Well, I mean, writing's always been my thing. But yeah, I mean, I wrote 3 or 4 novels, a few plays, masses of poetry, essays, all sorts, yeah. Didn't do much performance or anything during that period up until beginning of the century, slightly less than 20 years. I was looking for some sort of sense within the nonsense of everything that had happened so far. Increasingly knowing what I'd already exposed to myself years and years before, that the truth is always within, and to look out from that is actually will destroy your ability to see from within.
So your writing and your work then became that, trying to find out what it was?
Yeah, basically, that sort of thing. I mean, that was part of where I was trying to get to, and I did it in all sorts of different ways. And
you do start performing again, Crass Collective, in the way that you perform now, more like, where actually it combines your poetry with different instrumentation setups. But I wanted to forward to about 2008, 2009, because you said to me before that 15 years ago, something changed in terms of form becoming emptiness. Was it a sea change or something that changed in you?
Well, I had my heart attack. That was after I began that distinct journey. I mean, I had a bad relationship, tricked or seduced or fooled myself into a sort of 3-year relationship with a woman quite a lot younger than myself. It just sort of really ate me away. I fooled myself into thinking we were on a spiritual path together to probably feed my sexual appetite. It was a perfect midlife crisis thing. The midlife crisis is thinking, I'm not going to be able to manage this much longer. Stupid thinking. I came out of it wrecked, sort of...
you mean heartbroken wrecked?
More physically destroyed. And it was a real sort of journey into the material world that I'd so actively rejected.
In terms of the sensuality of it?
Or in terms of the everythingality of it.
Okay. How so? I mean, in what way?
Because my other relationships, they were just what happened. There was no seduction involved. And I should point out here that, G and myself were in a physical relationship until about the time of Wally's death. And when she went to New York, she was quite possibly going to be leaving forever. I then got into a relationship with Eve, who was the lead singer of Crass, lead female singer. Yeah, so I mean, people don't ever sort of know about that because I don't talk about it very often. But, she was my lover and remains in that, still now. And she's the sort of unspoken part of my life, actually. Partly because she absolutely insisted that I never, ever spoke about her.
Why do you think she didn't want you to speak about her?
I don't know, because she's a very secret person, I think. Not in an unpleasant way. She just she doesn't think things are anyone else's business.
Fair enough.
She keeps herself very much outside of it. Sometimes, to me, quite annoyingly so, because I so admire her work. Wonderful vocalist, fantastic writer, bloody good artist. But, she's happy just within her own world. That's very beautiful. I commend her for that.
So this 3-year relationship interrupted that, did it? Or?
Oh, yeah. Totally fucked it. And I bumped into her, actually, at Southern Studios, where I was doing some mastering or mixing or something like that. And I hadn't seen her for that period. And she just, looked at me and said, "You're not the same person. You're ruined." I was really ill. I was losing my sight. I had sort of cancers. I was just fucked. And I had to start rebuilding. The one thing that was good about that relationship is that I was thrown out, because it was the first time I'd actually realised I had to stand on my own 2 feet. I've been in a relationship since I was 14 or something. Always there was a woman by my side, and suddenly there wasn't. And actually that was so liberating, and I wanted it to hold. I mean, I was seeing Eve every so often. We'd just go out and have coffee because we were old lovers, old friends, and certainly that, we weren't going to try and replicate what we had before. But I started just really seriously looking at the things that in the past I just played with, like Zen or Taoism. So I started, reading more and meditating a bit. And one morning I woke up absolutely full of joy, and I'd never felt anything like that sort of joy before. I realised I was free from that bad relationship. I wasn't heartbroken, I was just bewildered, I think, when it all fell apart. And I coped by actually looking seriously at all the elements of my life, which I realised I'd only just cherry-picked. I'd cherry-picked Zen for what was comfortable for me. I'd cherry-picked guerrilla anarchism, because none of them ultimately were utterly fulfilling. I woke up one morning feeling this real sense of joy, and it was a true Satori sort of thing. And then I became suspicious. I thought, you're just fooling yourself again, Pat. So I booked in for a retreat to test myself. It was a 10-day silent retreat. And I turned up and just basically meditated for 10 days. I would tease myself to see what would make me budge. So I'd go through thinking of, my sex with the woman who I'd been with, really trying to get something. Whoa, that was good, or trying to get something out of it, and there was nothing there.
You mean to provoke yourself, provoke some strong reaction or some strong emotion?
Totally. I wanted to see that joy I'd woken was real, and I felt conclusively at the end of the 10 days that it was, and that something had happened. So then I effectively formalised that. From that moment on, I've meditated every day for, which was probably 10, 12 years ago, until I got COVID. And I've meditated only about once a week since I had COVID.
Do you think, like, in, classic Buddhist terms, that you had like an insight experience? Satori, I suppose, yeah.
Yes, it was a Satori, yeah.
And is that maintained?
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you telling me you're enlightened?
No, I'm not telling you I'm enlightened. I'm telling you I had a Satori. The Buddhists refer to the Bodhisattva, and the Bodhisattva is someone who might be enlightened, but who make the choice, as long as there's suffering in the world, I will not accept my enlightenment. It will drive everything that I do, but I will not practice as long as there's suffering in the world. Look at the world and then ask me the question again.
So you've taken the Bodhisattva vow?
I don't need to do that. I'm not a Buddhist, and I'm not a Taoist, and I'm not an anarchist. I'm a whateverist. I think all those things undermine the very thing they claim to create, ultimately. Not in the getting there, but they'll prevent you actually knowing and realising you've arrived, I think.
Are you still trying to alleviate that suffering through culture or through creativity?
That's part of it, yes, of course. Yeah.
How else?
Through natural beingness.
Your experience of things being connected, things being one, is that your kind of continual experience then?
Oh, yeah.
Not being separated.
I am all these things.
So is there anything to fear when you're in that state?
No. I absolutely do not have fear, no.
Desire?
No.
What about the anger?
No, I don't do anger. I can become angry with myself if I fuck up on a piece of woodwork. But that's not anger, is it? I just think, Pen, what are you doing, sort of thing. There's nothing to be angry about. And I think that we are all ciphers within the material world, We're not existent, we're metaphors. And we make a metaphor of what we think is reality. Building these layers and beneath these layers of metaphor, there's absolutely it's all construct. And I know that profoundly, and I exist there profoundly when I'm not wearing the materialist hat. I am all these things. All these things am I. I don't think it, and I don't need to know it. I am the wood that's chopping itself. I don't think or anything when I chop, or bread make. I'm not there. I am the bread, or I am the wood, or the wood is I. And I can't pull apart in any place or anywhere except in making material out of wind.
Music, I suppose, is a metaphor, isn't it? In the moment, the music's created and then where is it? I mean, I'm not talking about recording.
And it's why, true art is actually, it cannot be removed from that moment. Professional or, commercial or stuff that's being done within the material world for the material world has got nothing at all to do with art. Introduce me to a professional artist and you'll be introducing me to a sham, a bit like a professional healer. Their main interest is themselves. That's not healing. No reward, no service. We so easily can be seduced into playing that sham, the self, that which exists beyond the ego construct which we imagine as the self. The self actually is a metaphor for emptiness.
I wrote a song of birdsong, and warm feathers fell like snow from leaden skies, and made me a bed for the night. And there I wrote a song of myself. I wrote a song of myself, but could not find a name, nor even the sound of my own voice. I wrote a song of silence, which was mist upon crag, smell of goat, cobweb cloud. I was lost in the confusion. I wrote a song of the earth, yet even as I ran from the landslide, clinging the soil weighed down my boots. But why alone? I wrote a song of you, and I was encompassed by the dewy sweat of you, suffocated by the slither of you. You whispered your name, and I took it as a sigh. I wrote a song of sorrow, and holding your ears, you spat away my tears, and they fell as confetti of falsehood. Why then? I wrote a song of heart, which was not mockery, but you ran for my darkness, and far, far away, I heard the radio play. A Bojangle me baby, let the good times roll, let the good times roll, let the good times roll. Bojangle me baby, let the good times roll, let the good times roll, let the good times roll, oh let the good times roll, let the good times roll, oh let the good times roll, let the good times roll, oh let the good times roll, oh let the good times roll. A Bojangle me baby, let the good times roll.
Community, I don't just mean Dial House, but including Dial House, and your friends and the people that you're closest to now, who are they?
Well, I'm not really very sociable and I'm certainly, like people talk about community. I don't believe in community. I think I said before, I do believe the only community is global. And I don't have many friends. There's probably two people who I can talk to on the level that actually seems to make some sort of sense. And all the rest is trying to make sense of something which is senseless, so I can explain where I'm at. I don't go out of my way to explain where I'm at, because I'm nowhere, in the true sense.
You're going to carry on writing and performing?
I've just finished another album, and I haven't got any particular ideas of what I might do next year or this year or any other year. Stuff happens when it happens, really. I don't go out of my way to find anything, because there's plenty just stroking the cat and chopping the wood, really. I don't want much more than that.
How are your dreams?
Don't do dreams.
Did you ever?
No, I really have. I sometimes daydream, but I don't do dreams, no. Maybe if you know that all of this is sort of tantamount to being a dream, you don't need to dream on top of it. It's dream enough.
How are you feeling about your own death? Does it matter in any way?
No, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Absolutely doesn't matter. I mean, I don't see the difference between life and death. We're just dancing particles. they'll just dance another way. I do feel that I'm dead already, and I don't mean that in a morbid, materialist sense. I'm just as much alive as I am dead.
Like it or not, you've been an important person, and your work's been important for many people. I'm going to assume that in a way that doesn't really matter to you.
Not at all, no. I don't want to hear that. I don't need people to come up and say, oh, you changed my life. I just feel I haven't done anything at all. You've changed your life, not me. I mean, I don't even know you. Yeah, okay, so George Harrison changed my life by doing Everyone Has Choice When to and Not to Raise Their Voices. That's that one line when I was in my early 20s. Just like, wow, is that true? Yeah, wow. I don't need to be bouncing around shouting at everyone. I mean, it was really liberating, just one line. I suppose, as a young man, and had I met him, I'd have said, oh, those lines, yeah, you changed my life.
It's like, I think culture's changed my life.
Yeah.
Much for the better. I still think that culture, and counterculture, I suppose, really, in particular, is this kind of force for the good. I don't mean in a moralistic way, as in good, as in like it makes you a better person, but it expands the imagination in some ways.
I'm not being contentious here. I'm not in the slightest bit interested in expanding my imagination, because in attempting to expand my imagination, I'm actually limiting my imagination.
Hold on a minute, because you talk about suffering, right? What I often see is that, suffering comes from many sources, physical and psychic, but it's a dearth of imagination sometimes that actually causes suffering too.
Yes.
So one way to reduce suffering is to expand the imagination somehow. When you're talking about form and emptiness and things being one, well, I haven't had that experience, right? But I can kind of reach for it with my imagination. And that reaching for or imagining what it's like to be somebody else.
I think that thing that you're reaching for is absolutely existent now. It won't change, and it's readily available. I mean, the only way it's attainable is getting out of the way of yourself and all ideas of self. Freedom is existent. What's preventing it? You are. I'm not pointing the finger at you, but one is. It doesn't make any difference what we think. We can say, oh, there's no such thing as freedom. Fact is, it's existent, period.
We're out of time here.
Well, I hope I've managed to say something in a very short period to sort of try and deal with a life, isn't it?
We haven't dealt with your life, I feel, but I don't think you want to go back because actually it doesn't matter to you anymore.
No.
It's right.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of an effort to relive the Wally thing. I mean, I didn't have the illumination I might have now, or like, the Book of Auschwitz.
The metaphor there for me, which is signposts along the road, and you can read life backwards in some ways. Mm-hmm. The Book of Auschwitz, the, say, meeting with G, what happened to Wally Hope, and I'm sure other things, they're like these signposts on the road. You can only see that in retrospect. Mm. It's not like when it happens, it's some defined destiny or something. That.
Well, I think, I ceased to be Jeremy when I became Penny. And I think I've ceased to be Penny. I mean, that's the name that hangs because it's the one I've got. And I did think of changing it to rien recently.
Like the French nothing.
Yeah, but I won't. When people refer to me as Jeremy, which very, very few do, then they're always talking about someone I don't know anymore. I really don't know who that person was. I can remember what that person did or those sorts of things, but it's not me. Penny's not me anymore either, but I just not going to bother to change my name again.
Well, Penny Rimbaud for now. Thanks for coming to the Bureau of Lost Culture. There you have it. I don't think I've got much to add to that conversation. It was terrific spending a few hours with Penny. Challenging at times, definitely. Surprising. But he's lovely to be with. And he's probably going to hate me for saying this, but there is something deeply spiritual about the man. I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks to everybody who's written to me recently. Mark and Kate, Robin, Peter and Jeff Thanks for the suggestions. Some great suggestions. You can let us know your thoughts and suggestions to bureaulostculture.com. One last thing, which was Penny said that he was influenced by something George Harrison had said, and it was this, just in case you missed it. Everyone has a choice when to and when not to raise their voice. And I thought that actually is a terrific thing to remember. But my voice is going to be back with you further down the road, round the bend, and over the hillsides for more of these tales from the counterculture. I'm going to finish with another track with Penny and with Youth of the album they made together. Youth, of course, also a deeply countercultural figure.
You brave old land that stands so firm, you fortress against time, you rocks and stones so long before me, you green ivy so metallic in your grip, you mighty oak, mightier still in the root, that there we are entire. You brave old land, your service to industry, which also destroys you, you copper and iron, the smelt and the casting, the transference. And in valleys lost beneath woodland, chimneys haunt the moment, where once hunting knives were crafted, yet still remind of clogged feet and a calling. But you, the mountains, hold firm in your spell, while the winds embrace you to renew you, tufted grass and gorse